Before we get to the story, I'd like to say thanks so much for visiting my new channel. I'm going to be uploading cosmic horror related stories every single day. So if that sounds good, please drop a like and don't forget to subscribe. It means a lot, especially when just getting started. I hope you enjoy the story. The first thing they teach you in salvage diving is that the ocean doesn't hide things, it scatters them. A ship goes down and the sea takes it apart over time, spreads the pieces, lets the current carry them where it wants. You find wreckage in a wide field, never a tight cluster, never neat. The ocean is not tidy. It doesn't organize. It breaks things down and moves on. I've been doing this work for 11 years, and that has always been true, until it wasn't. My name is Mara, and I've worked commercial salvage and underwater survey along the North Atlantic for most of my adult life. I got into it through my father, who did the same work and stayed in it because I was good at it and because I genuinely like being underwater in a way that most people find hard to understand. Down there, everything is slower, quieter. The world makes a different kind of sense. I tell you that so you understand that when I say something was wrong down there, I'm not someone who spooks easily. I know what the ocean floor looks like. I know what belongs and what doesn't. The job came through an insurance investigator named Doyle, a compact and serious man who worked for a maritime coverage firm and who had the specific exhausted look of someone whose caseload had recently gotten very strange. He found me through a referral, called me on a Thursday, and by the following Monday, I was on a survey vessel called the Crest, 2 days out from a stretch of the North Atlantic that had swallowed 3 cargo ships in 6 weeks without leaving so much as a fuel slick behind. 3 ships, no debris, no distress signals that made it through, no bodies. The insurance company needed the seafloor mapped before they'd process the claims, which was standard procedure, and Doyle needed someone who could actually dive the site if the sonar turned up in anything worth a closer look. That was me. The Crest was a mid-sized survey vessel with a crew of 4 plus me and Doyle. The captain was a woman named Hesse, who'd been running survey work in the Atlantic for 20 years and who treated the ocean the way experienced people treat things they respect but don't trust. Her deckhand was a young man named Garrett, talkative and eager. Couldn't have been more than 22. The sonar operator was a quiet man named Vic, who communicated mostly in small nods, and who was, I learned quickly, very good at his job. We reached the survey coordinates on a grey Tuesday morning. The water was calm, which felt wrong given the season. The North Atlantic in late autumn is usually restless. That day, it sat flat and dark under the overcast sky like something holding its breath. Vic started the sonar sweeps, while Hesse held our position. Doyle and I stood in the survey room, watching the returns come in on the display, the seafloor resolving line by line from left to right. We were looking at roughly 400 feet of water, deep enough to be serious, but within my working range. The first ship came up on the sonar about 40 minutes in. Vic leaned forward in his chair. He pulled up the return and enhanced it, and we all looked at it together. The shape was clear. A cargo vessel, sitting on the bottom, upright, not on its side, not broken apart, not scattered, upright, like it had been set down. "That's not right," Hesse said from the doorway. She meant the orientation. Ships don't sink upright. They list, they roll, they break apart on the way down. or when they hit the bottom, they do not land on their keels and stay there like a toy placed on a shelf. Vic kept running the sweep. The second ship came up 20 minutes later, further out, same depth, same orientation, upright, intact. The third one was between them. All three ships, sitting on the seafloor in a rough line, all facing the same direction, all right side up. None of them showing the kind of collapse or scatter that a sinking produces. Vic ran the sweep twice more to make sure he wasn't misreading the returns. He wasn't. Doyle looked at me. I looked at the display. I told them I wanted to dive it. I went down the next morning with a camera rig and a single safety line running back to the crest. Garrett ran the line from the stern, while Hesse watched my depth gauge from the bridge. The water was cold and very dark past the first 100 feet, the kind of dark that your lights push back but never fully clear. I found the nearest ship at just under 400 feet. I came down on it from above, and the first thing I saw was the bow, pointing up at me, and beyond it, the full length of the vessel running back into the dark, sitting perfectly level on the seafloor. It was one of the missing cargo ships. I could read the name on the hull once I got close enough. I ran my lights along the hull from bow to stern. No damage that I could see. No breaches, no buckling, no sign of collision or mechanical failure. The hull was intact. The hatches were closed. Whatever had happened to this ship, it hadn't been impact, and it hadn't been breaking apart on the way down. The second thing I noticed was the hull itself. No growth. The ship had been on the bottom for at minimum 3 weeks, and there was nothing on the hull. No barnacles beginning, no algae, no colonization of any kind. Things start growing on submerged surfaces fast in the Atlantic, especially at this time of year. 3 weeks should have been enough for at least the beginning of it. The hull looked like it had gone under yesterday. The sea floor around the ship was the same, clear, undisturbed. No sediment plume, no impression where the keel had pressed down. The ship was sitting on the bottom, and the bottom looked like the ship had always been there, and also like the ship had never touched it. I took my footage and came back up. I went down again the following morning and went further out, past the line of 3 ships, following the sea floor in the direction they were all facing. The 4th ship was older. I could tell from the hull design, the kind of vessel that hadn't been built in 30 years. Same condition, upright, intact, no growth. I moved past it and found a 5th, older still, and then a 6th beyond that, each one a little further out, each one a little older, the line of them extending into deeper water where my lights couldn't follow, and my safety line wasn't long enough to go. I hung in the water above that 6th ship and pointed my lights out into the deeper dark beyond it and tried to see where the line ended. I couldn't. The water swallowed the light before it reached anything. I don't know how many ships are out there in that line. I don't know how far back it goes. What I know is that the ones I could see went back decades at least. Each one preserved the same way, facing the same direction, arranged with a consistency that had nothing to do with currents or chance. Something had put them there, had been putting them there for a long time. I was starting back towards the surface when I saw it move. I want to be precise. I didn't see it clearly. I saw the water move the way water moves when something large displaces it, a pressure change you feel before you see it. and then a shadow that was too large and too deliberate to be current. It passed between two of the ships below me, slow and even, and it was big. Not whale big, though I've been near whales underwater, and I know what that feels like. This was a different scale, and it moved differently. Not the fluid surge of a large marine animal, but something more methodical, like it was covering ground it had covered before. It passed through and was gone, and the water settled, and I went up faster than I should have. I told Hesse and Doyle what I'd seen on the second dive, and I showed them the footage. The footage of the ships was clear. The footage of the movement was not. It showed the water changing and the shadow, and then nothing. And on a screen, it looked like bad lighting or camera movement. I knew what I'd seen. The footage didn't help me prove it. Doyle watched it 3 times and didn't say much. Hesse watched it once and looked out the window at the water. "How many ships do you think are out there?" Doyle asked. "More than I could see. The line goes into water I couldn't follow." "Going back how far?" "Decades, maybe more." He sat with that for a moment. "And they're all intact. Every one I saw." He closed the laptop with the footage on it and rubbed his face with both hands. He was an insurance man trying to fit what I was telling him into a framework that made professional sense, and I could see him failing at it. Hesse said from the window, "We're dragging." I looked at her. "What?" "The anchor. We're dragging." She moved to the bridge controls, and I followed her. The position display showed us moving slowly, maybe 40 feet off where we'd been sitting when I came back up. The anchor was down and set, and we were moving anyway. Hesse pulled up the anchor tension reading. It was high, which meant the anchor had caught and was holding, but we were moving regardless, not drifting. Drifting has a randomness to it, a sideways wander. This was a straight line, slow and consistent, in one direction, towards the coordinates above the ships. Hesse called Garrett in from the stern to help her work the anchor winch, and that's when I noticed he wasn't on deck. I went back to the stern and found him at the rail, looking into the water. He was standing very still with both hands on the rail, and he didn't hear me come up behind him until I said his name. Twice. He turned and looked at me, and his expression was fine, normal, nothing alarmed or distressed. He just looked like a man who'd been thinking about something. "What are you looking at?" I asked. He looked back at the water. "It's clearer than usual," he said. "Down deep. You can almost see something." I looked over the rail. The water was not clear. It was the same flat, dark Atlantic water it had been all trip. I couldn't see past the first few feet. I brought him inside. Hesse tried the engines at half power to move us off the drift line. The engines ran fine. The ship moved, fought against whatever was pulling us, and made about 30 feet of progress before the drift reasserted itself and started pulling us back. Not a current. The water was flat, and there was no current at that strength running in that direction, in that part of the Atlantic. It was something else, the same something that had placed those ships on the bottom in a line, exerting itself on us the way it had exerted itself on them. The difference was, we had engines. Hesse ran them at full power for about 15 minutes. The crest shook, and the water behind us churned white, and we moved. Slowly, then faster, the resistance giving way degree by degree until we were making real headway and the position display showed us pulling away from the coordinates. Whatever was below us, let us go. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. I just know the resistance stopped before Hesse cut the engines, stopped while we still had distance to cover, like something that had been holding on had decided to release. We ran the engines for another 20 minutes after that to put real distance between us and the site. Nobody told Hesse to. She just kept them running. Garrett was quiet for the rest of the trip back to port. Not troubled, not shaken, just quiet in a way that was different from his usual talkativeness. He ate and slept and did his work and answered questions when asked. He just didn't volunteer anything, didn't look at the water off the stern the way he had at the site. I watched him the whole way back and couldn't find anything specific to point to. He seemed fine. He seemed fine in the way that something can seem fine when you can't see what's changed. I didn't say anything to Doyle about it. I'm not sure why. Maybe because I didn't have anything concrete to say. Maybe because I knew how it would sound. I filed it in the back of my head and let it sit there. We reached port on a Friday evening. Doyle thanked me for the work and said he'd be in touch about my report, and disappeared into a car that was waiting for him at the dock. I wrote the report that night in my hotel room. All of it. The ships and their condition and their arrangement and the footage and what I'd seen moving between them and the drift and Garrett at the rail. I wrote it as plainly as I could and sent it to Doyle's firm. I heard nothing for 2 weeks. Then Doyle called me. He sounded tired in a specific way, not sleep-tired, more like a man who'd been having the same argument with himself for 14 days and hadn't won. He told me the report had been reviewed internally. He told me the insurance claims for the 3 ships were going to be processed as standard losses. He told me the survey findings were being classified as a geological anomaly, pending further review, which I knew was the language companies use when they've decided something isn't going to be reviewed further. I asked him about the older ships on the seafloor, the decades of them extending into deeper water. He said the footage was inconclusive and the sonar returns were being reanalyzed by another team. He said it in the flat way. People say things they've been told to say. I asked him if there was a 4th ship missing yet. A pause. That's not information I can share. Which was its own kind of answer. The second contract offer came 3 days later, in writing, from a different department of the same firm. Different framing, different paperwork, different point of contact listed at the top. Same coordinates. Better money. I still have the email. I haven't answered it. Here's what I keep coming back to. Those ships on the bottom were intact, preserved. No growth, no decay, no damage. Whatever is down there didn't sink them. It kept them. There's a difference. And I think about it more than I'd like. 11 years of salvage diving, and I've never seen the ocean keep anything. It takes things. It breaks them down. It gives pieces back to the surface eventually, scattered and salt-worn and half gone. This was something else. Something that collects and preserves and arranges, that has been doing it long enough that the line of ships runs back further than I could follow, that holds things on the seafloor in the dark and does not let them decay. I don't know what it wants with them. I don't know if want is even the right word for something like that. What I know is that a 4th ship is gone, and maybe a 5th by now, And somewhere under that flat, dark water, the line is getting longer. And somewhere in this city, Garrett is going about his life. And I wonder sometimes if he looks at bodies of water differently than he used to. If he still sees things in the deep that other people can't. I haven't called him to ask. Some things you leave alone. The contract offer is still sitting in my inbox. Better money, same water, same coordinates. Like whoever sent it knows that I know there's something down there worth seeing, and they're betting that knowing is enough to bring me back. They might be right. That's the part that worries me most.